Okay. We'll start with Kapitel Chof. Yerotzena, the schus of the Tilim and the schus of the Tzedakah should bring a complete victory to Eretz Yisrael, a complete downfall to all the Seni Yisrael, and we should have the war end immediately. Everyone should come home healthy and well, and we should have Mashiach. Labna Tzayach Mizmar LeDavid. Yancha Adonai b'yoyim tzara, Yisageb Shem Elohei Yaakov, Yishlach Ezecha Mekodesh Hametzin Yisadeka, Yizkar Kol Menchesecha V'Oiloscha Yidash Nesela, Yitin Lecha Chil Vavecha V'Chol Atzoscha Yimalin, Neranana B'Shua Secha V'Shem Eloheinu Lidge, Yimale Adonai Kol Meshale Secha, Atu Yadaiti Ki Yeshia Adonai Meshichai, Yanehu Mishmei Kodshay, B'Gvuros Yesha Yeminei, Eile V'Rechav, V'Eile V'Asusim, Anachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Nazgir, Hei Makor V'Nafalu, Anachnu Kamna V'Naseidon, Adonai Yeshia HaMelech Yaneinu V'Yem Kareinu. Okay, so we are we're on page 8 in the booklet. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we're on top of the page. We'll start with the words. Let's start again with the 5th line from the top. Good morning, everybody. She'enoi. That starts with the word she'enoi. So we described in this last us how when a person sits down to eat, actually there's a war going on. What's the war? Who are the two sides? The war is that there's nitzutzis in this food, and these nitzutzis are connected to klipa, and there are two, just like in a war, there are two possibilities that either I will overpower the other side will overpower me. The question is, will I be able to elevate the nitzutzis that's in klipa, or will the klipa bring me down? So it depends how I eat the food. If I eat it, first of all, if I'm sure that I'm eating the food that's going to be kosher according to Torah, if I make a bracha before, if I make a bracha after, and of course the eating itself with the proper kavanah. Proper kavanah means that it's more refined kind of eating, that it's with an intention that through eating I'll be healthy, and I'll be happy, and I'll be able to serve Hashem better, and fulfill my purpose in this world better. And those are the thoughts that make the food more refined and allow me to elevate the nitzutz in the food. But if a person has other thoughts, and especially if it's totally not connected to Hashem in any way, and it's pure, just physical, materialistic passion, then what happens is the klipa brings the person down. So on this line, he concludes, we did this before, but we're just backing up a little bit so to get the flow. This is what it means, the quote which is brought from the Zohar before, that one eats bread by the sword, meaning that it's a time of war. And even though it says one eats bread by the sword, but achila hishem hakelel lechol tzorche haguf shel adam. Literally, in the narrow translation, achila means eating. But in the broader definition, achila is a word that includes all the physical, materialistic needs of a person. And that's called avodas haberurim. In other words, if a person buys clothing and they wear the clothing, by using the clothing, they're elevating the sparks in the clothing. If a person rents an apartment or just lives in an apartment, lives in a house, living in that house and living according to Torah, I'm elevating this space. So everything I'm dealing with is about avodas haberurim. Like the Baal Shem Tov says that if a person is traveling and they make the wrong turn and they get lost, so normally people get very upset that they made this mistake and now they lost a lot of time. But the truth is that this is being guided by Hashem, that there are sparks in that other place. I was supposed to go down this exit, I went down the wrong exit, but the real reason is the sparks in that exit, and I would never know such a thing. So the Eibishter makes me make the wrong turn, and by me being in that place, even the fact that I'm just passing by has an effect on elevating those nitzutzes which belong to me. I also once saw, also in the writings of the Baal Shem Tov, that if a person loses something, of course we all get upset, you lost something. So he said the reason why we lost it is because, in fact, initially when the person bought it, why were they sort of drawn to buy this particular, whether it's a piece of furniture or a piece of clothing or a wallet, whatever it is that you bought, you were drawn to it, to buy it, you liked it. It's because there are nitzutzes in that object that you have to elevate. The fact that you lost it is an indication that you did what you need to do. You did your time in elevating the sparks in it, and now someone else has to elevate the other sparks that are there, so it's for them to find it. If someone finds and returns it to you, obviously they needed to have it for a short moment, now it goes back to you to finish your job. But it's all about the tzutzes that are there. So really, all the needs of a person are included in achila, and in a certain way, everything we're dealing with is emel, and especially, a person goes to work, he's outside, he's in the business world, he's in a world which is outside, there's a lot of klipa going on, and I have to deal with it in the right way. That's the milchama, that's the war. So there's a war going on. Well, there's Gabar Olav, I have to overpower the Yitzhar, I have to overpower those things that are standing in my way. So this Aveda, when I'm going out there dealing with all these objects and articles or different people, is called Cherev Shel Milchama. That's really the sword that's associated with war. But davening is like shas kirva. It's only a time of war. And it's called Cherev Shel Shalom. It's called the sword of peace. And the reason why it's war, but on the other hand, it's still a sword of peace. Why is it a sword, but yet a sword of peace? Is because in davening, I'm not really being mavar the sparks in the food, in the clothing, in the business, in the money. I'm not dealing with those things now. Now I'm dealing with my own nefesh habahamis. How do I elevate nefesh habahamis? Is by me shining light. The light that I shine is the light of my own nefesh elokis. And by shining the light of my nefesh elokis, this should weaken the darkness of the nefesh habahamis. So how do I shine that light? Bizboinus belakus, v'hamidus, the nefesh elokis, he'mebchines is erus. When a person meditates on Hashem, thinks about Hashem and the greatness of Hashem and the relationship between Hashem and all the worlds and the relationship between Hashem and my personal world, as a result of that, there's a certain godly light that's shining. That godly light that's shining causes my midas to get in the Seder to be moved and excited about godliness in a certain way. And therefore, because my Nefesh Elokis is now more alert, and my feelings of my Nefesh Elokis are more alert, is Benakal Yosef Avodah is much easier, because my Nefesh Elokis is now revealed. And Nefesh HaBahamis Nizbatel Magila Shemeir. The Nefesh HaBahamis, in a way, loses itself in the presence of the light that's shining from a Nefesh Elokis. And that's why the Nakal Yosef Muhammad, this war is so much easier. But when a person sits down to eat, or a person goes out to work in the business world, shows in a shaykh is bonus, the Nefesh bonus, because then it's not a time that you could meditate on godliness. The efshel liyos kol hayom bizbonus. A person can be meditating on Hashem the whole day. Now's the time to focus on what I'm eating. I heard this from my grandfather about his father-in-law, my great-grandfather, that he was once watching him eating. He took a piece of bread, took butter, and smeared the bread on the butter. But while he was doing it, he got lost in some thought about a mimer that he learned. He was smearing the butter and going like this until it came to the point that he realized that it's in the wrong place. So imagine what things would look like if it would be mizbein in the middle of daven, in the middle of business. Actually, there is such a story brought down in the Sichos. You must have heard this before. That there was a chassid called Rabbi Majeski, and he was a businessman. He dealt with lumber. He sold lumber, and he also dealt with noblemen, apparently lumber on a large scale. And he sent a bill to a customer. When he was writing the bill, he wrote, "You ordered X amount of lumber, and this has cost so much. X amount of lumber cost so much. X amount of this cost so much." Then at the end, he wrote down, what's the total sum? And when he wrote those words, a thought occurred to him, what's the total sum of all the Maimarim of Chassidus? And he said to himself, the total sum of everything is Einaid Movade. Ultimately, everything leads to one point, that nothing exists besides Hashem. Each Maimon is just another way to explain how the world is one with Hashem. Okay, that was his experience. But the customer gets a bill, and, you have to pay. He's very excited. It's a good thing to pay. But he came to Rabbi Majeski and he said to him, I don't understand. I can understand that you forget to do your business and you start thinking about a mimer. But how is it in the middle of writing a bill, in the middle of writing, you end up in the mimer? So he said, why don't you understand? If in the middle of Shemon Esrei you can end up thinking about lumber, why can't you be thinking about lumber and end up in Shemon Esrei, with Einaid Movade? So when it comes to dealing with things in life, we can't be b'hizbonus. We have to focus on what it is that we're doing. The only exception to this are tzaddikim, like a Rebbe. The tzaddikim that are called Merkava. Like said in Chassidus, but Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe Rabbeinu, that when they were standing, let's say Moshe Rabbeinu was standing in front of Paroi, Yaakov was standing in front of Paroi and talking to him, or anything else that they were doing, while they were doing, like Yosef. I don't know if this came up in the Sichos, we're learning this in the Parsha now. It says in the Chumash that the brothers came to Mitzrayim, Yosef recognized them, they didn't recognize him. What's the reason?
He became a great man, he became the king from being.
But they saw his face. Right. So Rashi says that when he left them, they already had a full-grown beard. He didn't have a beard, so he looked different, and they didn't recognize him now. That's a simple shot. In Chassidus it says they had no recognition in such a level like Yosef HaTzadik, and that's why they couldn't put it together that this could possibly be Yosef. What does that mean? So it's explained that we find that Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Shvatim, Moshe, David, many great tzaddikim, before they became leaders, what was their occupation? They were shepherds. Why do they all choose a position of shepherds? So it's explained in Chassidus that the shepherd is the most conducive for serving Hashem properly. Because a shepherd is someone that takes the sheep outside of the city, and it's quiet, it's peaceful, tranquil, sits down. The sheep are eating, and I could sit and think about whatever I want to think. In fact, the pictures they draw of a shepherd is exactly that, sitting on a stone, on a rock with a flute, relaxing, a very relaxing atmosphere, which means that gave them the opportunity to serve Hashem in a way that they could remove themselves from the Gashmistic world, remove themselves from all the disturbances in the Gashmistic world, and apply themselves and think about Hashem. Yosef was not only not like that, he was the other end of the spectrum as far as you can possibly go. Why? First of all, Mitzrayim was the worst klipa in that generation in the world. In Chumash it says Mitzrayim is called Ervas HaOretz. Erva means the impurity, like the most impure, most immoral place in the world at that time was Mitzrayim. So just to be in such a country is already the opposite of a shepherd who could remove himself. In Mitzrayim itself, if he'd be living in a basement somewhere, okay, he's in Mitzrayim, but he's hiding, he's in a bubble. No, he's in the palace. Well, if he'd be in the palace and also have a little corner where you can sit down and hide, no, he is involved in what's going on. Not only is involved, it says without him, no one will lift a hand or a foot in Mitzrayim. He was the second in command to the king. In fact, it says in Chumash that he was actually the one who was running the whole country. Pare was only king by name at that point. Practically, he was running the country. So imagine he's running the country, and his connection to Atzilus was no different than the brothers who were in the field with the sheep. That was inconceivable to them. To be so involved in what's going on in the Gashmias, at the same time, to be so connected to what's going on Baruchnis, which means when he was in Mitzrayim, standing in front of Pare, he saw the source of Pare. When he spoke to Pare in words that Pare could understand, at the same time, he was addressing the source of Pare in the spiritual realm. It's beyond our comprehension. But the same is with all the tzaddikim. They were dealing with things begashmias, but they saw everything, what it is, on a deeper level. They related to that and how it's all interconnected. And therefore, whatever they did or whatever they said or the way they acted towards the Gashmistic things, at that moment, they were really, at the same time, thinking it was parallel to whatever's going on Baruchnis because it's all connected. It says in Chumash that Abraham Avinu bought Maras HaMachpelah for 400 shekel. You know how many Maimarim there are about the 400 shekel? What's 400 and what's a shekel? This kind of money or that kind of currency, Maimarim, it's all different levels in the spiritual realm. So when we learn about it, we learn a Maimar. Abraham Avinu, when he was standing in front of this person, a human being, and he gave him physically 400 shekel, he was thinking about all these levels that are involved with the 400 shekel. And how that's connected to the 400 men that Esav came with later. And that's connected to something else, which is found later in Tanakh with 400 people. In other words, this is only for great tzaddikim, that they are so connected and their eyes are so open. And these are godly people that see the Gashmis and the Ruchnis together. They see how everything is parallel. Actually, it's in Gemara. Without Chassidus, it's very hard to understand. But in Gemara, it says, there's a pasuk, Agur Cha'olamim, I live in the worlds. So Gemara says, Tzaddikim live in two worlds at the same time. And when the Rebbe spoke about the Friedrich Rebbe, that he's alive and he's here. He said, the Gemara says, tzaddikim live in two worlds. They're living here, but at the same time, they're also living up there. They see what's going on up there. The only difference is, up until Yud Shvat, when the Frierdiker Rebbe was here physically, we saw primarily how he's here, but we also believe that he's there. Now, it appears to us that he's primarily there, and we believe that he's also here. But the truth is, nothing has changed. That's the way that ever puts it. But for the ordinary person, you can't go around having hisbonenus all day. So if you don't have any hisbonenus, if you're not conscious of Hashem in your head, then you're also not going to be conscious in your heart. So the awakening of the midas, of the Nefesh Elokis that got excited about Hashem, during davening, it was a little bit on a high, but after the davening, Harenis Almu, Achrat Tefillah, they become hidden after the davening. Yeah, there's something left. That something is called a roshim. There's some impression left. There's a trace left of what I felt during davening. But now I'm not feeling what I felt during davening. So number one, the good news, which means the good part, the energy, the strength that I have during davening, I no longer have during the day. On the other hand, the other side of Kedusha is much stronger after davening than it is during davening. After davening, is mamish engaged with the Gashmias, not like during davening. While he's davening, he's really separate, he's not connected, he's not engaging with the food, with the money, with the temptations, with the challenges in the physical world. I'm engaged with my Nefesh Bahamas, but not with the actual temptations that are out there. Yes, the Nefesh Bahamas is also not pure Kedusha. It's Gam Keid Minega, it's Klipas Nega. But Nefesh Bahamas is still something more spiritual, something internal. He keeps saying Achila, but it's not just Achila, it's all materialistic involvements. When a person's involved in eating and involved in all the gashmistic and materialistic things in the world with money and everything else, now I'm mamish engaged, I'm invested in the gashmistic things. So from both ends, I'm in a weaker place, I'm much more vulnerable. Number one, the light of my Nefesh Elokis is dimmed because I stopped davening. My midos that we got excited during davening, it faded away. On the other hand, the negative, the enemy, is much stronger now than during davening, because now I'm dealing with the actual temptations out in the Elam Hazah. During davening, I don't have that. So from both ends, the davening is so much more challenging. I mean, after davening is so much more challenging than during the davening. And that's the real war. My word, my mimer has those words somehow didn't come out in the copy. What does it say after the word Oz? Anyone could read it to me? The line begins with the word Oz. Kamei? No, it's a base.
Kavada.
What?
Kavada.
Kaveda.
Okay.
Yes. And the next word?
Yoser.
Yoser. It's much harder. Kaveda, Yoser. It's Kaveda means heavy, but hard. It's much harder. Okay, so the answer is Eitzah. The advice is how can I make this war lighter and easier after the davening? During davening, when everything is in a better place, the klipa is down, and the Nefesh Elokis is up. Yasa Heskem, he makes a certain decision, he makes a certain resolve. How I'm going to conduct myself the rest of the day. The being that during davening, the light of the Nefesh Elokis is shining, he's removed from the Gashmis itself. Those temptations are not there in front of my eyes. So it's much easier to make that resolve. how he's going to conduct himself when it comes to eating, when it comes to drinking, and all other materialistic involvements. And this resolve, has a very strong power. It'll actually help the person that when the thing will come up, I'll be dealing with money, I'll be dealing with people, I'll be dealing with temptations. He will have the strength to act and conduct himself in a way which is consistent with his original resolve that he made during davening. So in other words, there's another point that it brings out here. If I wouldn't think about it this way, even if during davening a person gets excited and gets emotional and loves Hashem, and he has tears coming out of his eyes from all this amazing emotion, if he doesn't have the thought, so therefore, because I love Hashem, so when I go out there, I'm going to be strong in A, B, or C, if it doesn't make that connection, there won't be a connection between the emotion in davening and the experience after davening. You need a sort of a bridge that during davening, I have to think and in my mind make that resolve that if I feel this way, therefore what? Therefore, if I get these challenges, which I had yesterday and the other day and the day before, today I'm going to be strong. But if a person doesn't make that connection, even it doesn't mean that the davening was nothing or was imagination, it wasn't real. It was real, but it's just not connected. Because the davening is a spiritual experience. Out there is real temptation, real issues in life that are very tangible, and no connection. The resolve, that's the bridge that connects the two things. Like Rabbi always said, when there's a Fabrengen and people are, what happens by Fabrengen? Sing a niggin, you say l'chaim, somebody speaks, you hear something, you get a little bit excited, you get inspired. But there has to be something that's going to take that inspiration and translate it into action. That's going to be later, not now. So what can I do now? Now at least make the resolve that I'll translate it into action. Now we know why the Aveda during eating, that's called Cherev Shel Milchama. Mashiach and Aveda is a tefillah that's called Cherev Shel Shalom. The Fishaz made by Gili Oyer, because during davening there's light shining from the Nevesh of the kiss, and therefore there's Shalom. There's no real war. Right now I'm uplifted because I'm davening. It's only later when the excitement and the light that I felt during davening starts fading away, and the temptations of the Olam Hazeh start rising in front of my face, in front of my eyes, and then it's the Milchama. Yeah. Somebody wants to say something? I thought I heard someone's voice. Uh-oh. Yeah. I'm hearing voices. Yeah.
You're hearing my thoughts. With eating time, like, is this with all Gnostic like pleasures and things like that? Like, it's not just with eating. They're bringing the example of eating because it's something that everyone does every single day. But it's like with other things too.
What's with other things?
This war, like this.
Sure.
Yeah. So is there's very.
In other words, everything I'm involved with in the Gashmic world, I have to be cautious that whatever I'm doing it the right way. Like I said before, you're going shopping for clothing. It's a normal Gashmic activity. But you have to have a mind to shop for the right kind of clothing. It should be consistent with the laws of tznius. Again, you're in business. You want to make sure that you're going to deal with the money in an honest way. In business, there are men working, there are women working. You want to be sure there'll be, and again, in a tzniusdik way. People have parties or they go to restaurants for meetings. You want to make sure there won't be any issues with kashrus. And all sorts of things go on during the day. So even though these are not anything wrong that I'm doing, they're all activities which go into the category of klipas noiga, but I got to be careful to do it the right way, that it shouldn't be drawn down to shows klipas noigas. what I said last time was that, somebody would learn a mimer like this and say to themselves, wow, that means everything I do, I have to do Shem Shemayim. I'm not on that level. But I said that even if a person would just think that what I'm doing, just have the thought, is something which makes me feel better. I feel happier. I feel more uplifted as a result of it. And as a result of that, I can be a better Yid and I can serve Hashem better. That itself makes all those activities already in a different category. Yeah.
There's a relationship between you and God and you and people.
Yeah.
If, for example, you're making prohibition between you and people, it affects all the world because you're like creating klipa. But it's the same concept when you, for example, have Avera only that between you and God. It also affects all the world, right?
If it affects the world, yeah.
In most cases, like if it's Avera between people or between you and God.
Right. In other words, everything I do either draws down a light of Kedusha or it gives strength to Klippa. If Klippa is stronger, then it affects the whole world, there's more Klippa in the world. And if I bring more light, then there's less Klippa in the world. Light chases away darkness. So anything I do, if it's a mitzvah, if it's something that's godly, it makes the whole world more godly. If something that's the opposite, it makes the whole world have more Klippa in it.
I'm just like feeling when it's between you and God, you're like, okay, I'll take responsibility for it. So it's only between me and Hashem. People will not suffer because of it, because I wasn't doing something against people. It's just between me and Hashem.
So remember we spoke about the war in Eretz Yisrael, that when we daven, we learn, we do mitzvahs that helps them. So remember, people ask a question, how does it help them? If the soldier puts on film, so we understand, it says the enemy will see that Hashem's name is upon you and they will be overcome with fear. That's the pasuk. V'ro kol am haaretz, kishem Hashem nikra lecha, v'yoru mimeka. Okay, so if the soldier puts on film, then the enemy sees that Hashem's presence is on. Doesn't mean the enemy, meaning the Hamas Arab. They can't see anything except for Klippa. But it means the malach, the angel that's behind them, sees that godly light. And if the angel is weakened, then they become weakened because they get their strength from the angel. So they see, but the soldier didn't put on film. Someone else put on film in America or in England or in Australia. What does it have to do with the soldier? So we explain, because we're all one. Whatever one person does affects the other, especially if I have in mind that what I'm doing should be for the schus of that person or those people. So just like, because we're all connected, so everything is connected, the positive and also the negative. But besides that, when I do something, it has a certain effect on the world. In other words, if I do an Avera and I bring more Klippa into the world through my Avera, that affects, there's a ripple effect. I don't know if you know that word in English. Ripple effect means it's like one thing leads to another, like dominoes, one.
Chain.
Yeah, there's a chain reaction in the whole world from everything that we do, either the positive or the negative. Now, the Rebbe says, there's a mushal in a mimer, and he says like this, that when there is a place that's dark, you need light. So the more darkness there is, the more candles you need. So just imagine there's a world, and there's a huge world, but every yid is a candle, every mitzvah is a candle, and every time I do an Aveira, it's like the opposite, I'm adding more darkness. So everything we do affects the whole world one way or the other. Kitzer, let's do the kitzer, the summary. The writer in this part of the Maimon explains the words. What does it mean? Nama apum charba lechel, that we eat bread by the sword. Achila doesn't only mean eating. Kaileles, it includes tzarchei haguf, all the needs that are physical, materialistic needs. Nikras, and it's all referred to as cherev shel milchama, sword of war. Ufi, Because the Nefesh HaBahamis is in opposition to us elevating the sparks and everything that has to happen. And therefore, there's a war going on. So in this Maimah, he also explains Mailas Sherish HaTzameich V'Chai, that the Tzameich and the Chai come from the world of Tohu. And that source is higher than Sherish HaMedaber, higher than the human being that comes from the world of Tikkun. So when I elevate that spark of Olam HaTohu, Mailas Ha'adam, this elevates the person to a higher plane because I elevated the spark. I have now in me a spark that comes from a place higher than my source. Ubim Lav, if it doesn't elevate the spark, then the opposite happens. Meridai Megashme B'Yoser. Then the Gashmi brings me down. In other words, when I look at the Dov Gashmi, I have to remember there's two parts of the Dov Gashmi. There's one part that's lower than me and one part that's higher than me. If I eat the proper way, I'm connecting to the part that's higher than me. If I eat the improper way, I'm connecting to the part that's lower than me. If I connect to the part that's higher than me, I become lifted. If I connect to the part that's lower than me, I become schlepped down. The tefillah, but davening, even though we're davening with chamisha klezayim, 5 weapons of war, it's still called cherev shel shalom. It's still called war of swords of peace. Why? Because during davening, I'm working mainly with the gili the nefesh elokis is shining. Nefesh elokis is more alert. And as a result of that, I'm inspired, and that inspiration helps me overcome an Nefesh HaBahamis. And that's something which is called Cherev Shel Shalom. We're not really dealing with the real war, which is dealing with the temptations of this Ilam Hazah. I made these copies because we're not supposed to be writing in these little booklets. So these are copies later, if you don't mind to give it out. These are all the terms and also the questions on each one of the program.
Homework.
Yeah, I made up my mind that we're not going to do it this way. We'll do it as we're learning the mimer. But I didn't make a strong enough achlata. So the next mimer, being that if I forget, you'll remind me that we have to do it while we're doing the mimer. Yes.
One more, please.
What?
One more, please.
One more, please. Okay, because you said please, I'm going to give you one more. Okay.
Yeah. Because of my thank you, you're going to take me. Wow, thank you. We'll do it. Will we do it together?
Yeah, we'll do it in class also.
Oh,
but we might as well conclude the list. Oh,
my mistake.
now okay. We're going to do the last part already, being that it's such a small little ice. And then we'll go back to the questions and the terms. So remember, the mimer began with the pasuk with Yaakov. This is actually this week's parsha. See how it works out perfectly. Vayichi, Yaakov is talking to all his sons, and these are the words that Yaakov said to Yosef. Ani nasati lecha, I have given you shchem echad alachecha, one portion more than your brothers. Asher lekachti, and this piece of land, I took it, I acquired it, miyada Amori, from the tribe that's called Amori, and I took it with my sword and my bow and arrow. Now, Yaakov Lavan, the spiritual meaning behind Yaakov going to Lavan was Avedis HaBerurim, was to elevate the sparks. Now, in the Maimon is going to explain the difference spiritually between Yosef and the brothers. Yosef and the brothers were on 2 different levels. All the brothers were on one level, and Yosef was on a different level, on a much higher level. He's going to explain the difference. There's 2 ways in terms of how we can elevate the sparks. One is called B'derech Milchama, a way of war, and the other one is called B'derech Menucha. So before he said there's two kinds of swords. Sword, which is a sword of shalom, and a sword of war. Now we say, B'chlal, there's two ways of elevating the sparks. One is through war, and one is in a peaceful way. Which means, that the light, it's, of course, it's connected to what he said before about davening, but it means it's mainly elevated through Gili The Bechlalos, in general, the difference between the Shvatim, the way they elevate the sparks, the Shvatim come from the world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. It's B'derech Muhammad. The Berurah of the Yosef's way was B'derech Menucha. It's in a way of Menucha. Which means that you're not really engaging with whatever you have to elevate. It's even different than davening.
It's not a fight?
Not a fight.
So it's like almost like it's almost like the tzaddik versus like a Benoni and a Russian.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's similar to that, right?
With a shvatim like Benoni?
No, they were all tzaddikim, there's no question. All these things, tzaddik and Benoni and these levels, menucha, they're all relative to, in context of what, like for example, some places it'll say that the difference between Shabbos and the days of the week is Shabbos, we're elevating the world with derech menucha. We're not going to work, we're not dealing with the gashmias, and yet through the davening and the learning and kiddush and the mitzvahs, we're elevating the world in a different way. During the week, we're actually engaging with all the materialistic things. Then there's an explanation how in Shabbos itself there's two things, or in the weekdays itself there's two different things. So everything, when we talk about these two levels, everything is relative. So generally speaking, the general difference between Yosef and the Shvatim was we'll learn more about it, what it means. It's not exactly what we had before. It's something a little bit different. That Yosef's Aveda was more B'derech Menucha, and the Shvatim was B'derech Mochama. Yeah. Very welcome. A few days. Today's not tomorrow. Today's Monday to Tuesday, Wednesday. So maybe Thursday, either Thursday or Friday.
I forgot to tell you good morning.
Good morning. Still morning. This is lunch.
Yes, good morning.
Okay.
Okay. On lunch, that we spoke. I might get a little, I need a Thursday. This is an extra that somebody left.
Oh, it's exciting. So exciting, this, nightmare.
Of course.
Oh my God. Oh, 'cause we have.
Oh, this is cute. I'm not talking about you, Rabbi Majeski.